Over the past 9 years, I've spent countless hours counseling soldiers during my time in the military as an officer who had at any time over 100 subordinates beneath me. And giving feedback to them was always a challenge because having a personal relationship with everybody you're assigned to rate, evaluate, or provide feedback to was quite difficult. So the Army would create a system where they wanted you to counsel soldiers on a quarterly basis. And although it rarely happened, whenever we did do the required quarterly counselings, it was almost always a generic sheet of paper with a basic action plan, and maybe some expectations from me or any other leader, about how they should perform. And generally, the people receiving the feedback would sit there, they'd lose you know, any sort of interest, their eyes would go blank and you'd read it to them and they would sign it. And that was how feedback formally worked. But there was one time, and many other occasions, but the first time a soldier sat down across from me and said, hang on, like I actually want to know how I'm doing. And I had built a rapport with this soldier and I knew him a little bit better than some of the others. And so I said, okay, great. Let me think about some actual constructive feedback with you and meet with you again and discuss it further. And I had to sit down as a leader because I had been challenged by my subordinate to actually provide real, actionable, and honest feedback. And it was difficult for me. It was kind of eye-opening as a manager to realize that giving feedback requires time, requires a lot of effort, to develop an actionable plan for somebody to be able to perform at a higher level, or for somebody to be able to take your feedback, internalize it, and turn around and take action on it. But when we met, it was one of the most constructive conversations I've had in my Army career. It allowed me to understand the importance of feedback, especially to the people that are underneath you. Now, alternatively, as somebody who's also been underneath many other leaders, I've experienced, I think, the frustration that's associated with the very generic and somewhat personal feedback as opposed to performance feedback. I remember I worked for a specific leader for approximately 8 months, and the whole time he was very bland with giving me feedback. It was very difficult to get very much out of him. The relationship was generally okay, but eventually, after 8 months, I broke down and said, I just need to know, am I doing a good job or not? And he looked at me and said, you're doing a great job. It's the best work I've seen in a long time. And if I had known that 8 months prior, my confidence would have been through the roof. But because I never asked, and because he never gave it um, freely, uh, I feel as though I was constantly putting myself into a more stressful emotional state because I wasn't aware of how well I was doing. So I think gaining feedback from leaders is key for it to be told, but also as a leader, you have an obligation to talk to the person and inform them of how their performance is.